The Bogosity Podcast, early and ad-free. Become a subscriber at Patreon, Subscribestar, or Discord. Use the links at donate.bogosity.tv.
Welcome to the Bogosity Podcast for the week of June 8, 2025, the podcast that lost the lesson. This is your host, Shane Killian. Let's cuneate the news of the bogus. So this week marks the 36th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. I remember clearly when this happened, including being inspired by that famous footage of the lone man facing down a line of tanks. Lily Tang Williams, a self-described survivor of Mao's Cultural Revolution, took to X to let us know the lesson we should learn from her native China, which is, never give up your guns. She posted to X, 36 years ago, thousands of students, peaceful protesters in Tiananmen Square, were murdered in my native country. In 2015, I published this post to defend gun rights in America. Never forget the largest mass killer is always a tyrannical government. We shall never compromise on 2A. And the graphic read, if you believe more gun control by your government is going to save lives, you are being naive. The champion of all the mass killings in this world is always a tyrannical government. Where I came from, China had killed thousands of the students by its own government during the massacre of Tiananmen Square in 1989. I surely wish my fellow Chinese citizens back then had guns like this one I am holding in the picture. She's pictured standing in front of a waving American flag holding an AR-15. Quote, I am a Chinese immigrant and an American citizen by choice. I once was a slave before, and I will never be one again. I will always stand with my AR, no matter what my president signs with his pen. Signed, Lily Tang Williams. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said in a statement, quote, hundreds of thousands of ordinary people in the capital and throughout China took to the streets for weeks to exercise their freedoms of expression and peaceful assembly by advocating for democracy, human rights, and an end to rampant corruption. The CCP responded with a brutal crackdown, sending the People's Liberation Army to open fire in an attempt to extinguish the pro-democracy sentiments of unarmed civilians gathering on Beijing streets and in Tiananmen Square. Rubio could do with a bit of self-awareness given his current position. As Williams says on her website, quote, I grew up under Mao's Cultural Revolution in China and fled communism for the freedom of the United States. Now I fear the country I love is becoming the country I left. She also tweet-X'd, 36 years ago today, an ordinary Chinese man did an extraordinary thing, tried to stop the tanks holding his shopping bags. He disappeared, but the world will never forget #Tankman. I pray millions will take a stand like him. Which takes care of the old adage about, what can you do with your silly little guns when government has tanks? There's a reason the tanks didn't run right over him. Remember that the tank drivers wouldn't have been CCP leaders or anything, but ordinary soldiers, maybe even conscripts, who would be much more hesitant to do so and might even sympathize with him. After the Summer of Love, the hideous attacks on our free speech and our justice system by the Biden administration, and the increasing dictatorship of administrative academia, we have to face one uncomfortable reality. It can happen here.
Sometimes you just have to stomp some skulls. From the mind of Mr. Dapperton, a game for the ages. In a world where a race of undead furries tries to take over the world's nuclear arsenal, one man must stop them. But which man? You choose. The Orange Overlord.
Oh, my ear!
Bernie Slanders. Debate Dominator,
My kippa's ruined.
or Joe Sleepy.
Build me back.
And of course, Mr. Fancy Pants himself.
Forget those losers! You can get the Gold Edition and play as 4 more characters, including me, the Spooky Spaceman, along with Billionaire Brat, Professor Proof, and the easiest way to play, as Jesus himself!
7 complete different worlds with more coming all the time. Full controller support. You can even get eaten by a worm and pooped out into a furry cathedral.
And don't forget that Gold Edition, where you can play the ultimate challenge, Devil's Doorstep.
This gory satirical adventure pulls no punches. You know you want this game. Go to links.bogosity.tv/skullstompers and play Skull Stompers now.
Wow, well, for those of you who haven't been following the drama, and I don't know how you could have missed it unless you live in a giant hole somewhere in the Carpathian Mountains, it seems like for Elon and Don Trump, the honeymoon is over. The issue is what's called the Big Beautiful Bill, which longtime listeners should instantly recognize to be terrible just from the title. As I've said many times before, if they ever pass the Cute Puppies and Rainbows bill, head for the hills! The short answer is, it's a massive bill that House members weren't even given time to read before the vote, and increases the debt ceiling by $5 trillion, which it seems like this spending would reach in just a couple of years. So Elon just did what he does and let it all out on X. Quote, "I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it." In another tweet, he reposted a graph of the skyrocketing national debt since 1994 and said, "Mammoth spending bills are bankrupting America," adding in all caps, "Enough." Geiger Capital actually posted a good tweet to get us to recognize how big these numbers are by pointing out that 1,000,000 seconds ago was less than 2 weeks. 1,000,000,000 seconds ago was 1993, and 1,000,000,000,000 seconds ago was 30,000 BC, in the last ice age, when woolly mammoths and saber-toothed cats roamed the countryside. Despite a comfortable Republican majority, the Big Beautiful Bill squeaked by in the House by just 1 vote, which they only got because of the recent deaths of multiple Democratic House members. As Scott Pinkster of PJ Media wrote, "He destroyed Tesla's reputation with liberals by spearheading Doge, dictated his time and energy to cutting spending, lost billions of dollars in the process, and now it looks like it was all for naught. If I were in Musk's shoes, I'd be pretty PO'd too." But as he writes, the cold hard reality is, quote, "The truth is, neither party has been serious about cutting spending. Dems grow government just a little bit faster, and Republicans grow government a little bit slower. But both sides are responsible for the fiscal mess we're in today. Republicans say tomato, Democrats say tomato. Either way, the song remains the same." So Trump went on the attack.
But I'm very disappointed because Elon knew the inner workings of this bill better than almost anybody sitting here, better than you people. He knew everything about it. He had no problem with it. All of a sudden he had a problem. And he only developed the problem when he found out that we're going to have to cut the EV mandate.
Elon posted in reply, "False. This bill was never shown to me even once and was passed in the dead of night so fast that almost no one in Congress could even read it." Thomas Massey replied that they even violated the 72-hour rule, requiring a bill to be posted 72 hours before passage, and a rule that requires a day to pass between being modified by the Rules Committee and the vote on the House floor. Quote, "This means the final language of the bill was released only a few minutes before debate began. The vote on the rule change and the vote on the bill followed within a couple of hours." Elon is right. Members of Congress didn't even know what was in this bill until the night had passed. A few other members have also made this clear. As for the second part of Trump's claim, he reiterated it on Truth Social. Elon was wearing thin. I asked him to leave. I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy electric cars that nobody else wanted, that he knew for months I was going to do, and he just went crazy. To which Elon replied, such an obvious lie. So sad. Yeah, there never was any mandate that forced people to buy electric cars. There was the $7,500 tax credit, but Elon was always against that. Here's what he said back in 2021 at the CEO Council Summit regarding Biden's Inflation Reduction Act.
Honestly, it might be better if the bill doesn't pass, because we've spent so much money, it's like the federal budget deficit is insane. It's like $3 trillion. Federal expenditures are $7 trillion. Federal revenue is $4 trillion. That's a $3 trillion difference in, if this was a company, it'd be a $3 trillion loss. So I don't know if we should be adding to that loss. That seems pretty crazy. Something's got to give. You can't just spend $3 trillion more than you earn every year and expect, don't expect something bad to happen. I think, this is not good.
What about the support, though, for the charging network? I mean, there are parts of this bill. And no?
No. I mean, do we need support for gas stations? We don't. So there's no need for this, for support for a charging network. I would delete it. Delete.
Okay. All right.
I'm literally saying get rid of all subsidies. But also for oil and gas. But I think just generally, I'm in favor of deleting subsidies. I mean, when we started Tesla, there were no EV subsidies at all, and gasoline was super cheap. We did not anticipate any subsidies. That came later, and that came, the $7,500 tax credit came as a result, not of Tesla activity, but of General Motors lobbying for it. So, I would just say, just delete them all.
So Trump just had to escalate things. He posted to Truth Social, the easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it. And Elon replied, in light of the president's statement about cancellation of my government contracts, SpaceX will begin decommissioning its Dragon spacecraft immediately. Dang! Elon showing he's not a man to screw around with. He also made several other posts saying, if America goes broke, nothing else matters. The Trump tariffs will cause a recession in the second half of this year. When Doge designer posted a lot of Trump tweets where he criticized the Republicans for extending the debt ceiling, called for a balanced budget, and said that no member of Congress should be eligible for re-election if they run a deficit, Elon responded, where is the man who wrote these words? Was he replaced by a body double? And the big bomb, the shockwave of which is yet to hit. Time to drop the really big bomb. At real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT. And then, mark this post for the future. The truth will come out. Of course, Trump long ago released his name in the Epstein flight logs in a way that showed no indication of wrongdoing, but the implication is that Elon knows something else. Either that or he's just getting a bit of revenge on Trump for his lies. Personally, I'm waiting for Elon to challenge Trump to a cage match. But circling back to the big, beautiful bill, in the entire history of civilization, there has never been legislation that is both big and beautiful. Everyone knows this. Either you get a big and ugly bill or a slim and beautiful bill. Actually, the only beautiful bill, no matter the size, is one that cuts down the size of government without increasing it any. Despite the so-called tax cuts, the bill does increase spending, and total spending is the real tax. As was said all those years ago, it's spending, stupid!
If you're on the Wi-Fi in a coffee shop or hotel, anyone on that network can get your traffic. Do you really trust all of those strangers? For that matter, do you really trust your ISP? A VPN can protect you from prying eyes, disguise your location, and even foil government censors. It's essential in this day and age, so go to vpn.bogosity.tv and you'll be taken to BoxPN. Starting at just $2.99 a month, you can get unlimited high-speed connections to VPN servers all over the world, and they don't log connections, so your privacy is assured. Traveling abroad, just VPN home, and don't worry about what those other governments are doing. Back at home, stop your ISP from traffic shaping and messing with the quality internet access you're paying good money for. You can connect from multiple machines at once, including your smartphone or tablet, and it supports all the secure standards, including OpenVPN and SSTP. Bypass sensors and surveillance with your own secure VPN connection. Go to vpn.bogosity.tv.
I don't know, man. I don't know how anything's gonna top that Elon story. But while it was all going on, some unanimous Supreme Court decisions slipped in under the radar, and they're worth talking about. So let's start with Mexico's ridiculous gun lawsuit against Smith & Wesson and Interstate Arms that the Supremes threw out 9-0. They claimed that they were the reason for all the crime in Mexico, resulting in a deadly flood of military-style and other particularly lethal guns flowing across the border. I mean, they more sensibly could have sued Barack Obama for literally doing that, but hey, they say it must be the problem with U.S. gun manufacturers because their laws make it impossible for a Mexican citizen to own a gun. Just keep telling yourself that, sunshine. So the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act was supposed to keep this case from coming in the door. Justice Kagan, writing for the unanimous court, wrote, "Recall that Congress enacted the statute to halt a flurry of lawsuits attempting to make gun manufacturers pay for the downstream harms resulting from misuse of their products. Congress explained that PLCAA was meant to prevent manufacturers and sellers from being held liable for the harm caused by those who criminally or unlawfully misuse firearms. Mexico's suit seeks to recover from American firearms manufacturers for the downstream damage Mexican cartel members wreak with their guns. We doubt Congress intended to draft such a capacious way out of PLCAA, and in fact it did not. The predicate exception allows for accomplice liability only when a plaintiff makes a plausible allegation that a gun manufacturer participated in a firearms violation, as in something that it wished to bring about and sought to make succeed. Because Mexico's complaint fails to do so, the defendant manufacturers retain their PLCAA-granted immunity." And by that exact same argument, the Sandy Hook plaintiff's case against Remington should never have been let in the door. In a concurrence, Thomas wrote, "It seems to me that the PLCAA at least arguably requires not only a plausible allegation that a defendant has committed a predicate violation, but also an earlier finding of guilt or liability. Allowing plaintiffs to proffer mere allegations of a predicate violation would force many defendants in PLCAA legislation to litigate their criminal guilt in a civil proceeding without the full panoply of protections that we otherwise afford to criminal defendants. And these defendants might even include ones who were cleared in an earlier proceeding, such as through a non-charging decision or a not guilty or not liable verdict. Such collateral adjudication would be at best highly unusual and would likely raise serious constitutional questions that would counsel in favor of a narrower interpretation. This issue warrants careful reconsideration." There's also a reverse discrimination case. Marlene Ames was hired by the Ohio Department of Youth Services in 2004. Her boss is gay, and despite performance evaluations showing that she met expectations in 10 categories and exceeding them in an 11th, she was passed over for a promotion which was then given to a lesbian. To add insult to injury, she was then demoted to a position paying a little more than half what she was making, with a gay man put in her place. The Sixth Circuit threw out her case, saying that because she was straight, she wasn't in a protected class. Justice Jackson wrote for the unanimous court, "Title VII's disparate treatment provision draws no distinctions between majority group plaintiffs and minority group plaintiffs. Rather, the provision makes it unlawful to fail or refuse to hire or to discharge any individual, or otherwise to discriminate against any individual with respect to his compensation, terms, conditions, or privileges of employment because of such individual's race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. The law's focus on individuals rather than groups is anything but academic. By establishing the same protections for every individual without regard to that individual's membership in a minority or majority group, Congress left no room for courts to impose special requirements on majority group plaintiffs alone. Justice Thomas filed a concurrence railing against what he called judge-made doctrines, saying, quote, "A textual, judge-created legal rules have a tendency to generate complexity, confusion, and erroneous results. I am pleased that the court correctly rejects the atextual background circumstances rule today." And the last one, Wisconsin tried to force Catholic Charities Bureau, a religious charity, to pay taxes from which both charities and religious organizations are exempt. Their excuse? The Catholics didn't proselytize enough, and they also served non-Catholics. Sotomayor wrote for the Unanimous Court, "Wisconsin's exemption, as interpreted by its Supreme Court, thus grants a denominational preference by explicitly differentiating between religions based on theological practices. Indeed, petitioners' eligibility for the exemption ultimately turns on inherently religious choices, namely, whether to proselytize or serve only co-religionists, not secular criteria that happen to have a disparate impact upon different religious organizations. It is fundamental to our constitutional order that the government maintain neutrality between religion and religion. There may be hard calls to make in policing that rule, but this is not one. When the government distinguishes among religions based on theological differences in their provision of services, it imposes a denominational preference that must satisfy the highest level of judicial scrutiny." The cases could not be more different. A gun rights case, a discrimination case, and a religious liberty case. The left and right tend to be all over the place in these three issues, in which and how many of our rights they support. But anyone who understands the nature of fundamental human rights should not hesitate to support all of them. It's great to see SCOTUS doing just that.
I want to tell you about the eyeglasses I've been wearing for years. As people can see on my videos, I have a very strong prescription, which makes glasses more expensive, especially when I need computer glasses, reading glasses, prescription sunglasses, and most expensively, progressive lenses for general everyday wear. To save money while still getting quality glasses, I get them from Firmoo. In fact, I just got a pair of progressives with high-index aspherical lenses and a nice pair of frames my wife loves for just over $100. It would have been $500 to get them through my eye doctor. Not only do they look good, the glasses are durable. I've worn many pairs for several years without problems. All orders come with a 30-day return policy, a 3-month warranty, and one-on-one customer service. Go to Firmoo, that's FIRMOO.Bogosity.tv anytime you need quality glasses at a low price. Once again, that's Firmoo.Bogosity.tv.
And now it's time to deanimate this week's biggest Bogon emitter. And pretty much on the heels of the American Cancer Society, the American Medical Association gets one as well for more misinformation and fear-mongering about vaping. They published an article saying that someone who quit smoking but still vapes is still smoking. So someone who stopped driving and started bicycling is still driving, I guess. They claim, quote, "Using other tobacco product or any other product that contains nicotine is not actually quitting." Problem. That means someone using nicotine gum or the patch to stop smoking isn't actually quitting. And before you say that vaping isn't a way to quit smoking, check the archives. It has a much better track record than these other options. Nicotine patches are only effective for about 10% of smokers, whereas e-cigarettes are effective at least 20 to 25% of the time. They are far superior to traditional nicotine replacement therapy. Which means they're really shoveling it when they write, "A lot of vape companies want consumers to believe switching to other tobacco products, including vapes or e-cigarettes, is a way to quit. However, it is not, and there are a lot of unproven health claims made by the e-cigarette or vape industry that is confusing people who actually want to quit smoking. This creates a lot of confusion for people who really want to quit typical cigarettes, and they feel that going to e-cigarette will be a way to help, but that's not exactly true." Yeah, it's pretty much exactly true. So why do they do this? Why spew Bogosity against a superior form of cessation? Michael Siegel is someone we've referenced quite a bit on this issue because he knows the crowd. He started off as an advocate for banning cigarettes, and then when vaping came out, called for banning it just as strongly. Then he looked at the evidence and changed his mind. So what's the difference between him and the AMA and all these others? Here's how he describes it. What is going on here? I'll tell you. It's called lifestyle control. The tobacco control movement has largely lost its focus on public health and instead is now focusing on lifestyle control. They promote smoking cessation, but only if you quit the way they want you to quit. They are the ones who get to define what counts as quitting smoking, not you. That you are literally saving your life by becoming an exclusive vapor. You are still using nicotine by a mechanism that they despise, so they get to tell you that you've actually not quit smoking, even though you most certainly have. So in classic Joseph Goebbels style, the AMA and their mouthpiece, Dr. Bilal Shahid Bangash, accuse the e-cigarette companies of creating a lot of confusion for people who really want to quit, when that's what they're doing. To make it even worse, Bangash said, quote, "They are just as addictive and with the same additional risk of lung injury as traditional cigarettes." That is absolutely ridiculous. Smoking causes 3.2 million deaths worldwide. There isn't any evidence establishing vaping as a cause of COPD, and patients with COPD who switch to vaping experience dramatic improvements in lung health. He complains that, quote, "There are a lot of unproven health claims made by the e-cigarette or vape industry that is confusing people who actually want to quit smoking." Back at you, Bangash. His evidence for vaping being ineffective at quitting, in direct contradiction with all of the available evidence, is that it hasn't been approved by the FDA. So, no company has taken 10 years and $1 billion to get it FDA approved, so it must not work. He complains that the nicotine in e-cigarettes is synthetic, directly employing an appeal to nature just like the homeopaths and naturopaths do. In fact, though, only about 6 companies make synthetic nicotine, and the overwhelming majority of e-cigarettes on the market are made with nicotine derived from tobacco. As Siegel says, quote, "Unfortunately, it is apparently no longer important in the tobacco control movement to provide accurate information. When I worked for the Office on Smoking and Health at CDC, we would never have even thought about making a false statement to the public. Now, tobacco control practitioners and organizations are doing it daily and apparently without being even slightly troubled." It just seems pervasive across the board. As time goes on, the less we can trust academic and professional groups on a variety of health issues. And now we can add one more to the list on one more subject. So all of that makes the AMA this week's biggest Bogon emitter.
Do you have children, or nieces or nephews? Are you homeschooling, or just want to counter some of the socialist indoctrination most children get in school? If so, go to Bogosity.tv/TuttleTwins, and you'll be taken to a website where you can get some great books for elementary-aged children. The Tuttle Twins books are books about liberty and free market economics that include children's versions of Bastiat's The Law, Leonard Read's I, Pencil, and Hayek's The Road to Serfdom, as well as books about the Federal Reserve and how regulations protect business cronies. They'll learn about the harm caused by eminent domain, or regulations passed in the name of safety, and fundamental concepts of liberty. And as you can see from the sample pages on the website, they're all easy to read and nicely illustrated. They're just $9.99 a piece, or get a special discount as well as free bonuses when you purchase all 5. You can even buy in bulk to donate to schools and local libraries. So get the Tuttle Twins books at Bogosity.tv/TuttleTwins.
And now let's conflagrificationalizationify this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. And it's more age verification insanity from the state of Texas. A new law requires Apple and Google to verify the age of every user in order to use their App Store. All users under the age of 18 will have to have parental consent to download any app. And in case you haven't figured it out, that would require the parents to verify themselves too. This bill is made to assist the Kids Online Safety Act, so there's the response to those of you who insisted it would only apply to porn sites. In the meantime, we're still waiting for SCOTUS to hand down a decision on Free Speech Coalition v. Paxton regarding COSA. Hopefully they'll do the right thing and apply strict scrutiny to this instead of rational basis. So yeah, this administration got elected to the Texas governor and state legislature on the idea that they were against regulations, against big governments, and for privacy and free markets, unlike Joe Biden and his crowd who were mercilessly spying on everyone. Oh, and also, how many Republicans are like, government shouldn't be nanny? It doesn't take a village. Parents raise children and not government. Remember that? Campaign like libertarians, rule like Democrats. Why should we be surprised? This is not only the most extreme privacy violations you could have and a horrific opportunity for identity thieves, there is absolutely no plan whatsoever for how they're supposed to do this. And they have to figure it out by the 1st of January. Just nerd harder. Apple CEO Tim Cook said in a statement, quote, SB 2420 threatens the privacy of all users as it requires app marketplaces to collect and keep sensitive personal identifying information for every Texan who wants to download an app, even if it's an app that simply provides weather updates or sports scores. We believe there are better proposals that help keep kids safe without requiring millions of people to turn over their personal information. We've covered over and over again how there are so many better ways of protecting children, none of which involve insane privacy and cybersecurity violations like this. So instead of going over all that yet again one more time, instead we'll just say that Texas is this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. Well, that wraps up this Flagging with the Dragon edition of the Bogosity podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go to donate.bogosity.tv for several ways to support and discord.bogosity.tv to join the discussion. Subscribe at the Discord, Patreon, or Subscribestar, and you can listen early and ad-free. Thank you for listening. Until next time, here's a quote from Darell Hammond. In an era of parental paranoia, lawsuit mania, and testing frenzy, we are failing to inspire our children's curiosity, creativity, and imagination. We are denying them opportunities to tinker, discover, and explore. In short, to play. The Bogosity podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License.
Bogosity.